When a hunter brought back a large kill, the camp did not celebrate. They complained. They told him the animal looked thin. The meat would probably be terrible. He had wasted everyone's time. The bigger the kill, the harder they pushed back. Lee watched this happen and was confused until an elder explained it plainly. A man who thinks he's better than everyone else becomes dangerous. So you cut him down before he gets there. Every joke was a small correction. Every whispered complaint was the group recalibrating. No prisons, no courts, no police. Just 25 people talking to each other every single day. And that was enough to keep almost everyone in line. Anthropologists who have studied hunter-gatherer groups across Africa, South America, and Australia find the same pattern everywhere. Gossip was not trivial, it was the legal system. This mechanism of public shaming operated with remarkable consistency across different environments and cultures. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia used similar tactics, though with their own variations suited to desert life and smaller band sizes. Among the Hadza people of Tanzania, hunters who made boasts about their kills faced immediate deflation from the group. The system worked because the stakes were transparent and the consequences were real. A man who lost his reputation also lost his standing in the most important currency of hunter-gatherer life: trust. No one would want him as a hunting partner. No one would want him as a guardian of their children. No one would want his bloodline mixed with theirs. The mockery was relentless precisely because it had to work fast, before Risi. Netment could calcify into genuine challenge. The group could not afford a slow correction. They needed the individual to internalize the message immediately, to adjust his behavior in real time, to become small again before he became dangerous. But jokes only went so far. If a man ignored the mockery, kept hoarding, kept threatening, kept putting himself above the group, the next tool was shunning. The camp would simply stop talking to him. In a group of 25 people where you have known every face since birth, where there are no strangers, no other options, no city to disappear into, silence from the people around you is devastating. Researchers call this social exclusion, but that phrase is too clean for what it actually felt like. It meant no one passed you food first, no one sat near you at the fire, no one helped you when your shelter needed repair. You were still physically present and completely alone. For most people, that was enough. The behavior changed fast. What's remarkable is how rarely things had to escalate beyond this. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent decades studying the mechanisms hunter-gatherer societies used to keep dominant individuals in check, and what he found was that the threat alone usually did the work. Everyone knew what happened to the man who pushed too far. Nobody wanted to find out firsthand. The psychological weight of prolonged shunning cannot be overstated in the context of human evolution. Our brains developed over millions of years in small groups where belonging was literally necessary for survival. A person cast out from their community in the ancient world faced not just emotional pain, but practical extinction. Food sharing would diminish, protection would evaporate. In conflict with neighboring groups, you would be left undefended. The involuntary isolation was so effective that in many documented cases, the threat of shunning alone caused immediate behavioral change. People would modify their actions, reverse their decisions, and actively work to restore their standing within the group. The system demonstrated a deep understanding of human psychology. The architects of these early social systems knew that shame and exclusion could reshape behavior more reliably than violence ever could. When someone pushed that far anyway, the group had one more option: exile. You were told in whatever way the group communicated these things that you were no longer welcome here. Pack what you own, which in a hunter-gatherer camp fits in a single bag, and walk. In a world without roads or cities or neighboring towns that would take you in, exile was not a soft punishment, it was close to a death sentence. Boehm documented cases where groups went further than exile, where a man had become so violent, so disruptive, so dangerous to everyone around him, that the other men in the group made a collective decision and killed him. Not one person, the whole group, together. Because if one man did it alone, that was just another act of violence. When the whole group agreed and acted together, it was something else entirely. It was policy. Researchers have found evidence of this kind of coordinated group action in hunter-gatherer societies across multiple continents, and the pattern is consistent. The man who becomes a predator within his own camp does not last long. The group protects itself. These decisions, when they came to execution or permanent exile, were not made lightly or quickly. The group would typically have exhausted all other options first. There would have been months or even years of mockery, attempts at correction, periods of shunning. Only when the danger became undeniable and the individual showed no capacity for change would the final decision be made. And when it was made collectively, with the understanding that every adult male bore responsibility for the outcome. This shared responsibility meant that the decision could not be reversed by a single person's guilt or doubt. It belonged to everyone, which made it stable. It also made it rare. Communities did not casually kill their members. They killed when the alternative was allowing a dangerous man to destroy the fragile social bonds that kept everyone alive. Then came civilization, and something shifted. When humans started building cities, establishing governments, accumulating property, the informal tools of the camp stopped working. You could not shame a king into sharing. You could not exile a general by refusing to sit near him at dinner. The hierarchies got fixed in place, and the people at the top had armies. But the Athenians tried something different. In the 5th century BC, Athens invented a formal democratic process for removing anyone who was getting too powerful. Citizens gathered in the marketplace and scratched a name onto a piece of broken pottery called an ostracon. If at least 6,000 votes were cast, and one name appeared most often, that person was gone. 10 days to settle their affairs, then 10 years of exile, no execution, no property seizure, no permanent disgrace, just gone for a decade, and then allowed to come back. Themistocles had led the Athenian navy to one of the greatest military victories in Greek history at the Battle of Salamis, and it did not save him. His power had grown large enough that the citizens voted him out in 472 BC. The man who saved Athens from Persia was told to leave Athens for 10 years because he had become too much of himself, too dominant, too close to the thing the whole system was built to prevent. He never actually made it back. He fled to Persia and died there, but the mechanism itself worked. Athens used ostracism on multiple powerful figures over the course of a century, and the knowledge that any citizen could be removed kept the ones at the top slightly more powerful than they might otherwise have been. Rome handled it differently and with more categories. Roman exile came in layers. The lightest version, called relegatio, sent you away for a limited time without stripping your citizenship. A harder version took your citizenship rights along with your freedom of movement. The most severe form, deportatio, was permanent forced banishment, usually for life, to a place you did not choose. The poet Ovid was one of the most celebrated writers in Rome when the Emperor Augustus banished him in 8 AD. His crime was never officially stated. His poetry celebrated affairs and desire in ways that apparently offended the emperor, or perhaps he had witnessed something he was not supposed to see inside the imperial household. Nobody knows exactly. What is known is that Ovid was sent to Thomas, a cold pool, lost on the Black Sea, surrounded by people who spoke a different language, and he never came back. He spent the rest of his life writing letters begging for forgiveness that never arrived and was buried far from the city he loved. For the hunter-gatherers on the savannah, exile meant walking into the wilderness with a bag. For Ovid, it meant living out his days at the edge of the known world, watching ships come and go that were not carrying him home. The punishment was different. The logic behind it was the same. The group had decided you had become too much of a problem, and the group had the power to simply remove you from itself.